The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like it had for the past 5 years. Jake Sullivan stood on his porch, drinking coffee and watching the farmers head out to their fields. The corn was growing tall this season, and the wheat looked good. Too, life was simple here, and Jake liked it that way. Jake was the colony commander, but that was just a fancy title. New Haven only had 3,000 people, and most days his biggest problem was settling arguments between neighbors. He had 20 soldiers under his command, and their main job was keeping the wild animals away from the crops. Dr. Lisa Morgan walked up the dirt road toward Jake's house. She carried her medical bag in one hand and waved with the other. Lisa ran the colony's small hospital and took care of everyone when they got sick or hurt. "Morning, Jake," Lisa said with a smile. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Sure is," Jake replied. "How's old Pete doing? I heard he hurt his back again." "He'll be fine. Just needs to stop trying to lift those heavy grain sacks by himself." Lisa laughed. "Some people never learn." Jake nodded and took another sip of coffee. In the distance, he could see Katie Bell working on the water pumps that kept their irrigation system running. She was the best engineer on the colony, always fixing things before they broke down completely. Tom Hayes drove his truck past Jake's house, heading out to check on his cattle. Tom had the biggest ranch on New Haven, and he supplied most of the meat for the colony. He honked his horn and waved as he passed. This was the life Jake had always wanted. No big cities, no pollution, no crime. Just good people working hard and taking care of each other. New Haven was far from Earth, but it felt like home. Captain Ryan Phillips was up in orbit, commanding the 3 small ships that protected New Haven. They weren't much compared to the big military vessels, but they were enough to keep pirates away. Ryan was a good man, and Jake trusted him completely. The day went on like any other. Kids played in the streets while their parents worked. The local shop was busy with people buying supplies. The school teacher, Mrs. Clark, led her students on a nature walk to study the local plants. Jake spent the afternoon checking the colony's defenses. They had a few gun turrets around the main settlement, and some sensors that would warn them if any ships approached. It wasn't much, but New Haven had never had any real trouble. As evening came, Jake sat down for dinner with his wife Sarah. She worked in the colony's communication center, keeping in touch with other human settlements and Earth. They talked about their day and made plans for the weekend. "The Hendersons want to have a barbecue on Saturday," Sarah said. "They're celebrating their wedding anniversary." "Sounds good to me," Jake replied. "It's been too long since we had a colony party." At exactly 9:47 p.m., the alarm started screaming. Sarah jumped up from the table. "What's that?" Jake was already reaching for his communicator. "Colony defense alert. All residents to emergency shelters immediately." The message crackled through the device. "Unknown ships approaching. Multiple contacts." This is not a drill. Jake ran outside and looked up at the night sky. He could see bright flashes of light where Ryan's ships were fighting something. More flashes appeared, and Jake's heart sank as he realized how many enemy ships there were. His communicator buzzed. It was Ryan's voice, full of static and fear. "Jake, we're outnumbered 10-1. These aren't pirates. They're military vessels, and they're not responding to our communications." "Who are they?" Jake asked. "I don't know, but they're coming fast. Get everyone to the shelters now." Jake ran through the streets, shouting for people to take cover. The colonists moved quickly. They had practiced this drill many times. Women carried their children, and men grabbed whatever weapons they could. Fine. Katie Bell was helping elderly colonists get to safety when the first enemy ship landed. It was huge and black, with strange symbols painted on its sides. The ship's doors opened, and creatures Jake had never seen before stepped out. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces had no expressions, and their eyes glowed red in the darkness. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. What do they want? Someone screamed. Jake tried to reach Ryan on his communicator, but there was only static. He looked up and saw burning debris falling from orbit. Ryan's ships were gone. The alien creatures spread out through the colony. They moved with cold efficiency, like they had done this many times before. Some of them set up strange devices that made a high-pitched whining sound. Others began rounding up colonists. Jake tried to organize a defense, but his 20 soldiers were no match for the aliens' advanced weapons. The humans' bullets bounced off the creatures' armor, while the aliens' energy weapons cut through everything. Dr. Lisa Morgan was trying to help wounded colonists when an alien grabbed her. She fought back, but the creature was too strong. Jake watched helplessly as they dragged her toward their ship. Tom Hayes had grabbed a rifle and was shooting at the aliens from behind his truck. He managed to hit one of them, but 3 more peered and surrounded him. Jake saw the energy blast that ended Tom's life. The battle was over in less than an hour. Most of the colonists were dead, and the survivors were being loaded onto the alien ships like cargo. Jake found himself chained next to Katie Bell and a few dozen others. "Why?" Katie whispered. "We never hurt anyone. We just wanted to live in peace." Jake didn't have an answer. As the alien ship lifted off, he managed to activate his emergency transmitter with his foot. It would send one final message to Earth before the aliens found it and destroyed it. "This is New Haven Colony." Jake spoke into the device. "We are under attack by unknown alien forces. They came without warning. They showed no mercy. Most of us are dead. The survivors are being taken as prisoners. Remember us? Please remember us." The transmitter went silent as an alien weapon destroyed it. Jake looked out the ship's window and saw New Haven burning below. 5 years of hard work, of building something good and clean, were gone in one night. As they flew away into space, Jake made a silent promise. If he lived through this, if any humans lived through this, they would make these creatures pay for what they had done. The aliens might think humans were weak, but they would learn how wrong they were. The message from New Haven reached Earth 3 days later. It traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying Jake Sullivan's final words to the human homeworld. When the signal arrived at the communications center in Geneva, the technician on duty almost couldn't believe what he was hearing. Within hours, the recording was playing in the office of President Maria Santos. She sat at her desk, listening to Jake's desperate voice over and over again. Each time she heard it, her anger grew stronger. "Get me Ambassador Helen Cruz," Maria told her aide, "and call an emergency meeting of the Colonial Defense Council." Helen Cruz had been humanity's representative to the Galactic Council for 2 years. She was smart, patient, and good at dealing with alien politics. But when she heard about New Haven, even her diplomatic training couldn't hide her shock. 3,000 people, Helen said, shaking her head. Gone, just like that. And we don't even know who did it. Alex Carter, the head of Human Intelligence Services, pulled up a holographic display. "We've identified the attackers. They call themselves the Zephyrian Dominion. They're a military empire that controls about 50 star systems." "What do we know about them?" President Santos asked. Alex pointed to different parts of the display. "They're slavers. They attack weaker civilizations, kill most of the population, and take the survivors as workers. They've done this to at least 12 other species in the past century." "And the Galactic Council allows this?" Helen asked. "The Council says it's not their problem," Alex replied. "The Zephyrians are members in good standing. They pay their taxes and follow most of the rules." President Santos stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the busy streets of Geneva, full of people living their normal lives. They had no idea that thousands of humans had just been murdered on a distant world. Helen, I want you to go to the Galactic Council immediately, Maria said. Demand justice. These creatures attacked an innocent colony without any warning or reason. I'll do my best, Helen replied. But the council moves slowly, and they don't usually get involved in what they call local disputes. This wasn't a dispute, Maria said firmly. This was genocide. Helen Cruz arrived at the Galactic Council station 2 weeks later. The station was huge, floating in space between 3 different star systems. It housed representatives from over 200 alien species, all trying to work together to keep peace in the galaxy. The council chamber was a massive round room with seats for all the member species. Some aliens were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some breathed different gases, so they sat in special environmental suits. Helen always felt small and new in this room. Representing one of the youngest species in galactic politics, Chairman Vextar was a member of the Hegemony, one of the oldest and most powerful alien civilizations. He had been running the council for over 30 years, and he treated newer species like annoying children. Ambassador Cruz, Vextar said in his deep, rumbling voice, we understand you wish to make a complaint against the Zephyrian Dominion. Not a complaint, Helen replied. A demand for justice. The Zephyrians attacked and destroyed one of our colonies. They killed 3,000 innocent people. Murmurs went around the chamber. Some aliens seemed interested, but most looked bored. This kind of thing happened all the time in their part of the galaxy. Zephkor, the Zephyrian representative, stood up to speak. He was tall and gray, just like the creatures that had attacked New Haven. His red eyes showed no emotion as he talked. The humans entered Zephyrian territory without permission, he said calmly. They were warned to leave, but they ignored our warnings. We acted within our rights to defend our borders. Helen felt her face getting hot with anger. That's a lie. New Haven was established 5 years ago. We filed all the proper claims with the Galactic Survey Office. The planet was listed as unoccupied. The paperwork was incorrect, Zephkor replied. That world has been part of Zephyrian space for centuries. The humans were trespassers. Chairman Vextar looked at the documents on his desk. It appears there is some confusion about territorial boundaries. These disputes happen frequently with newer species who don't understand galactic law. There's no confusion, Helen said, her voice getting louder. You have recordings of the attack. You can see that the Zephyrians gave no warning. They just started killing people. The Zephyrians followed proper military procedure, another alien said. This was Clixon from the Trade Federation. They have ancient rights to that sector. The humans should have researched more carefully before settling there. Helen couldn't believe what she was hearing. These aliens were treating the murder of 3,000 people like a simple paperwork error. What about the survivors? She asked. The Zephyrians took human prisoners. We demand their return. Zephkor made a sound that might have been laughter. Those individuals chose to remain in Zephyrian territory. They are now productive members of our society. They're slaves. Helen shouted. They are workers, Zephkor corrected. They receive food, shelter, and purpose. Many species find great satisfaction in serving the Dominion. Chairman Vextar banged his gavel. Ambassador Cruz, please control yourself. Emotional outbursts are not appropriate in this chamber. Helen took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. Chairman, I'm asking for a formal investigation into this attack. The evidence clearly shows that the Zephyrians committed an act of unprovoked aggression. The evidence shows a territorial dispute that escalated regrettably, Vextar replied. Such things are unfortunate, but they are not the Council's responsibility. The galactic laws of sovereignty are very clear on this matter. So you're going to do nothing? Helen asked. We suggest that humanity and the Zephyrian Dominion work out their differences through diplomatic channels, Vextar said. Perhaps a trade agreement could be reached to compensate for any misunderstandings. Helen stared at the alien chairman. You want us to pay them? They murdered our people, and you want us to pay them? The galaxy is a complex place, Ambassador, Vextar said. Young species often have difficulty understanding how things work. In time, humanity will learn its proper place. The session ended with no action taken. Helen walked back to her ship, feeling sick to her stomach. She had failed the people of New Haven. The galaxy's so-called justice system had completely abandoned them. Back on Earth, President Santos listened to Helen's report with growing fury. Alex Carter had more bad news to share. Our intelligence sources say the Zephyrians are planning more attacks, Alex said. They see New Haven as a successful test. They want to hit 3 more human colonies in the next 6 months. And the Galactic Council won't help us? Maria asked. They've made their position clear, Helen replied. They think we're too new and too weak to matter. In their minds, we should just accept whatever happens to us. Maria Santos stood up and walked to a wall, covered with pictures of human colonies. Families building new lives on distant worlds. Children playing in alien sunshine. People working hard to create something better. The Council thinks we're weak, she said quietly. The Zephyrians think we're helpless. They all think humans will just roll over and take whatever they dish out. She turned back to her advisors. They're wrong. If the galaxy won't give us justice, we'll take it ourselves. Alex, I want you to start Project Retribution immediately. Helen, keep talking to the Council, but don't expect anything from them. What's Project Retribution? Helen asked. Maria's eyes were hard as steel. It's how we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you hurt humans. They want to see how weak we are? They're about to find out how wrong they can be. Outside the window, Earth continued spinning peacefully in space. But in government buildings around the world, people were already beginning to plan for war. The galaxy had made its choice, and now humanity would make theirs. Admiral Ben Tucker had been retired for 3 years when President Santos called him back to duty. He was fishing at his cabin in Montana when the secure phone rang. After hearing about New Haven, Ben packed his bags without hesitation. You want me to build a fleet from nothing? Ben asked during his first meeting with the president. Not from nothing, Maria Santos replied. From anger, from determination, from the need to make sure this never happens again. Ben was 62 years old and had spent 40 years in the military. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion and commanded ships during the Jupiter colony crisis. He knew how to build fighting forces, and more importantly, he knew how to win wars. How much time do I have? Ben asked. 3 years, maybe 4 if we're lucky, the president said. Alex's intelligence sources say the Zephyrians are planning more attacks, but they want to space them out. They think slow pressure will make. Use give up. They don't know humans very well, Ben said with a grim smile. The first challenge was secrecy. Humanity couldn't let the galaxy know what they were planning. If the Zephyrians or the Galactic Council discovered Project Retribution, they might attack Earth directly. Ben set up his headquarters in an old mining facility on the far side of the moon. The location was perfect, hidden from Earth-based observers and far from normal shipping lanes. Within months, the facility grew into a massive complex of shipyards, training centers, and research laboratories. Chief Engineer Sam Davis became Ben's right-hand man. Sam was brilliant at designing new technology, and he had a personal reason for working hard. His brother had lived on New Haven and died in the attack. We need ships that can fight better than anything the Zephyrians have, Ben told Sam during one of their planning meetings. I've been studying their technology, Sam replied, pulling up holographic displays. Their ships are big and powerful, but they're also old-fashioned. They rely on heavy armor and massive weapons. And that's bad, Hal, Sam grinned. Heavy armor makes you slow. Massive weapons use lots of energy. If we build smaller, faster ships with better power systems, we can run circles around them. The new ships took shape over the following months. They were sleek and deadly, designed for speed and precision rather than brute force. Each ship had advanced computers that could think and react faster than any alien crew. Dr. Amy Foster led the team developing new armor and weapons. Amy was young but incredibly smart, and she had revolutionary ideas about combat technology. Traditional armor tries to stop enemy weapons, Amy explained to Ben during a demonstration. Our new reactive armor absorbs the energy and redirects it. A Zephyrian energy blast won't just bounce off. It'll make our armor stronger. That's impossible, Ben said. So was flight. Once upon a time, Amy replied with a smile. Watch this. She fired a captured Zephyrian weapon at a test panel. Instead of burning through the metal, the energy spread across the surface and disappeared. The panel actually became brighter and stronger. How does it work? Ben asked. Quantum field manipulation, Amy said. The armor takes incoming energy and converts it into structural reinforcement. The more they shoot at us, the tougher we get. Colonel Nick Johnson was in charge of training the new military forces. Nick had studied every major battle in human history, and he understood that technology alone wouldn't win the war. The Zephyrians have been fighting the same way for centuries, Nick told his officers. They use standard tactics because they've always worked, but humans are different. We adapt, we improvise, we find new ways to solve old problems. The training was intense. Soldiers learned to fight in zero gravity in alien atmospheres and against enemies they had never seen before. They practiced boarding enemy ships, liberating prisoners, and destroying military installations. But the most important part of the training was psychological. Nick made sure every soldier understood what they were fighting for. This isn't about conquest, he told them. This isn't about glory. This is about justice. The people of New Haven were murdered in their sleep by creatures who thought humans were too weak to fight back. We're going to prove them wrong. Meanwhile, intelligence agent Claire Adams took on the most dangerous job of all. She went undercover in Zephyrian space, posing as a slave trader from a minor alien species. Claire was an expert at disguise and deception. With the help of advanced medical technology, she looked and sounded like a member of the Crix race, small aliens who often worked as middlemen in the slave trade. For 2 years, Claire traveled through Zephyrian territory. She visited slave markets, toured military bases, and gathered information about enemy defenses. Every piece of data she collected was transmitted back to Earth through hidden quantum communicators. Their military is strong but predictable, Claire reported during one of her secret transmissions. They have fortified positions around every major world, but they're all built to defend against traditional attacks. They're not expecting anything like what we're planning. The most difficult part of Claire's mission was seeing human slaves in Zephyrian markets. She watched Katie Bell and other New Haven survivors being sold like animals, and she had to fight. The urge to rescue them immediately. Patience, she told herself. When the fleet comes, we'll free them all. As the months passed, more human colonies were attacked. Each new massacre added fuel to humanity's determination. The colony of Riverside was hit 18 months after New Haven. Then it was Greenfield, then Oak Grove. Each attack followed the same pattern. Overwhelming force, no warning, most colonists killed, and the rest taken as slaves. The Galactic Council continued to ignore humanity's pleas for help. Some aliens even seemed to find the situation amusing. Humans were learning their place in the galactic order, they said. It was a natural process. Let them think that, President Santos told her advisors. Every day they underestimate us is another day we get stronger. By the third year, the secret fleet was taking shape. The moon facility had produced over 200 warships, each one more advanced than anything in the galaxy. Thousands of soldiers had completed their training, and the intelligence network had mapped every important Zephyrian target. Admiral Tucker stood in the command center, looking at displays showing the entire Zephyrian Empire. Red dots marked military bases, government centers, and slave facilities. Each dot represented a target that would be hit simultaneously when the attack began. Are we ready? President Santos asked during her final inspection of the facility. Ben looked around. At the ships, the soldiers, and the weapons that had been built with 3 years of careful planning and unlimited determination. We're more than ready, Madam President. We're going to hit them so hard and so fast that they won't know what happened until it's over. Dr. Amy Foster joined them at the observation deck. The new armor is installed on all ships. The quantum communication system is active. The AI battle coordination is online. We're ready for anything they can throw at us. Colonel Nick Johnson nodded in agreement. The troops are trained and motivated. They know what this mission means. Every soldier, every pilot, every technician understands that we're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting to make sure no human colony ever suffers like New Haven again. President Santos looked out at the fleet of warships floating in space around the moon facility. Each ship represented humanity's refusal to be victims. They were instruments of justice, built by a species that had been pushed too far. Send the message to all ships, Maria said. Operation Retribution begins in 72 hours. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you hurt humans. Admiral Tucker smiled grimly as he gave the orders. The Zephyrians thought they were dealing with a weak, divided species that would eventually give up and accept their fate. They had no idea that humans had spent 3 years planning their destruction. In a few days, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. The age of humanity being seen as helpless newcomers was about to end in the most dramatic way possible. The fleet began moving toward the jump points that would take them to Zephyrian space. After 3 years of preparation, it was finally time to settle the score. At exactly 0800 hours, Galactic Standard Time, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at 50 different locations across Zephyrian territory. The attack was perfectly coordinated, hitting every major military installation, government center, and slave facility simultaneously. Admiral Ben Tucker stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical displays show the beginning of Operation Retribution. Each red dot on the screen represented a human task force striking at the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. All units report ready, Admiral, his communications officer announced. Execute Phase 1, Ben ordered. The Zephyrians were caught completely off guard. For centuries, they had been the predators, attacking weaker species without warning. They had never experienced a coordinated assault on this scale, and their response was confused and panicked. Captain Luke Mason led the attack on Zephyr Prime, the Zephyrian homeworld. His squadron of 12 ships faced the planet's massive orbital defense platforms, structures that had protected the alien capital for over 200 years. Look at the size of those things, Luke's weapons officer said, staring at the defense platforms through the ship's view screen. Size doesn't matter if you can't hit your target, Luke replied calmly. All ships implement attack pattern Delta. Let's show them how humans fight. The human ships moved in ways the Zephyrians had never seen before. Instead of approaching in straight lines like traditional fleets, they spiraled and weaved through space, their advanced engines allowing impossible maneuvers. The defense platforms fired their massive weapons, but the human ships were too fast and unpredictable. Energy beams that should have destroyed the attackers passed harmlessly through empty space as the human vessels danced around the slow-moving shots. "Their targeting systems can't keep up with us," Luke observed with satisfaction. Dr. Foster's engine modifications are working perfectly. The human ships returned fire with precise, concentrated bursts. Their weapons were smaller than the Zephyrian guns, but they were far more accurate. Within minutes, the first defense platform exploded in a brilliant flash of light. On the planet's surface, Zephyrian military commanders frantically tried to coordinate a response. General Korthak, the supreme military leader, had fought dozens of battles against primitive species. He had never faced an enemy that moved like this. "How are they doing that?" he demanded, watching the tactical displays show his defense platforms being destroyed one by one. "Unknown, sir," his aide replied. "Their ships appear to be using some kind of advanced propulsion system. Our computers can't predict their movement patterns." "Send the reserve fleet," Korthak ordered. "Crush these insects before they can do any more damage." But the reserve fleet was already under attack. Commander Grace Kelly's Marine assault force had hit the military shipyards where the Zephyrian reserve vessels were docked. Her troops were fighting their way through the facilities, planting explosives on every ship they could find. Grace had trained for this mission for 3 years. She knew the layout of Zephyrian military bases better than some of the aliens who worked there. Her intelligence came from Claire Adams, who was still operating undercover in enemy territory. "Team Alpha, secure the command center," Grace ordered through her communicator. "Team Beta, plant charges on those heavy cruisers. Team Charlie, with me, we're going to the slave compounds." The Zephyrian guards were brave but unprepared. They had never fought humans before, and they didn't understand how dangerous the small, quick aliens could be. Grace's Marines moved through the base like ghosts, striking from unexpected directions and disappearing before the enemy could react. The slave compounds were Grace's primary objective. Intelligence reports indicated that over 5,000 humans were being held in this facility alone, including survivors from New Haven and the other destroyed colonies. Grace found Katie Bell in the engineering section, where the Zephyrians had been forcing her to maintain their equipment. Katie was thin and scarred, but her eyes still showed the fire that had made her the best engineer on New Haven. "Katie Bell?" Grace asked, pulling off her combat helmet. Katie stared at the human soldier in disbelief. You're human. How did you get here?" "We came to take you home," Grace said simply. "All of you. Can you walk?" "I can run," Katie replied, tears streaming down her face. The liberation of the slave compounds was happening across Zephyrian space. Tom Hayes was found in an agricultural facility where he had been forced to work in alien fields. Dr. Lisa Morgan was rescued from a medical research center where the Zephyrians had been using her knowledge to develop new biological weapons. Each rescued human brought vital intelligence about Zephyrian operations. They had spent years observing their captors, learning about alien technology and military procedures. This information was immediately transmitted to Admiral Tucker's command center. "The Zephyrians have a secondary command bunker on their moon," Katie told Grace as they evacuated the slave compound. "It's heavily shielded, but there's a weakness in the power grid. If you hit the generators in sequence, the whole system will collapse." Grace smiled. That information just might win us this war. Meanwhile, Colonel Nick Johnson's ground forces were systematically destroying Zephyrian military academies and training centers. The goal was not just to win this battle, but to ensure the enemy could never rebuild their military strength. Every weapons factory, every training facility, every research lab, Nick told his officers, "We're not just defeating the Zephyrians. We're dismantling their entire war machine." The human tactics shocked the galaxy. Other alien species monitored the battle through long-range sensors, unable to believe what they were seeing. The Zephyrian Dominion, one of the most powerful military forces in known space, was being systematically destroyed by a species that had been dismissed as weak and primitive dot at the Galactic Council Station. Chairman Vexstar watched the reports with growing alarm. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was crumbling before his eyes. How is this possible? He asked his advisors. Our intelligence reports said humans had no significant military capabilities. The reports were wrong, sir, one aide replied nervously. The humans have been preparing for this attack for years. Their technology appears to be far more advanced than we realized. On the battlefield, Admiral Tucker was receiving status reports from all 50 task forces. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned, but he knew the hardest part was still ahead. Phase 1 complete, he announced to his command staff. All primary targets have been neutralized. Zephyrian fleet strength is down by 70%. Slave facilities are secure, and liberation operations are ongoing. What about their leadership? Asked his intelligence officer. Phase 2 begins now, Tucker replied. Captain Mason, you have authorization to target the Zephyrian High Command. Colonel Johnson, begin operations against their government centers. Commander Kelly, continue prisoner liberation operations. The second phase of the attack focused on capturing or eliminating Zephyrian leadership. The aliens who had ordered the destruction of human colonies would face justice in human military tribunals. General Korthak was found in his command bunker, trying to coordinate a counterattack that would never come. When human Marines breached his defenses, he surrendered immediately. The mighty Zephyrian general, who had conquered a dozen worlds, was defeated by a species he had considered beneath notice. Why? Korthak asked as human soldiers placed him in restraints. Why did you attack us? We followed the ancient laws. We claimed your territory fairly. Captain Luke Mason, who was leading the arrest team, looked at the alien general with cold eyes. You murdered 3,000 innocent people on New Haven. You enslaved our colonists. You thought humans were too weak to fight back. But you are weak, Korthak protested. Your species is young and small. You have no right to challenge the established order. Luke smiled grimly. We're about to show the entire galaxy just how wrong you are about that. The battle for Zephyrian space continued for 6 more days, but the outcome was never in doubt. Human forces moved with precision and determination, dismantling centuries of alien military power with methodical efficiency. By the end of the week, the Zephyrian Dominion had ceased to exist as a military force. Their fleets were destroyed, their leaders captured or dead, and their slave facilities liberated. Over 50,000 humans and aliens had been freed from bondage, including nearly all the survivors from the destroyed colonies. Admiral Tucker stood on his bridge, looking at the tactical display that now showed green lights across former Zephyrian territory. The mission was complete, but he felt no joy in the victory. Too many good people had died to make this moment necessary. Send a message to Earth, he told his communications officer. Tell President Santos that Operation Retribution is complete. The Zephyrian military threat has been eliminated. Justice has been served. As the message traveled toward Earth, similar reports were going out across the galaxy. Every alien species with the ability to monitor interstellar communications was learning the same shocking truth. Humanity was not the weak, divided species they had appeared to be. The galaxy was about to discover that when humans sought justice, they didn't just win battles, they changed the entire balance of power forever. 6 months after Operation Retribution began, the galaxy looked very different. The mighty Zephyrian Dominion was gone, their territory now under human protection. Thousands of former slaves were free, and dozens of previously oppressed species. We're beginning to hope for a better future. President Maria Santos stood before the Galactic Council. But this time, the circumstances were very different. Instead of begging for justice, she was delivering an ultimatum. Through the station's massive windows, the assembled aliens could see the human fleet, hundreds of warships that had proven their deadly effectiveness. The age of ignoring human concerns is over, Maria announced to the silent chamber. Any species that attacks human civilians will face the same fate as the Zephyrians. We will not ask for permission. We will not wait for council approval. We will act. Chairman Vexstar looked much older than he had 6 months ago. The confident alien leader who had dismissed humanity's pleas now seemed small and uncertain. President Santos, Vexstar said carefully, the council recognizes that recent events have changed the balance of power in this region of space. We are prepared to discuss new arrangements that take into account humanity's expanded capabilities. Maria's expression didn't change. There's nothing to discuss. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to inform you of the new reality. She activated a holographic display that showed the former Zephyrian territory. These 50 star systems are now under human protection. Any species living there who was previously enslaved or oppressed is free to govern themselves. Any species that tries to re-establish the old system of slavery will be removed. Murmurs went around the chamber. Many of the alien representatives looked frightened. They had never seen a new species rise to power so quickly or so decisively. Ambassador Helen Cruz watched from the human section with satisfaction. For years, she had endured the Council's condescending attitude toward humanity. Now the tables had completely turned. The Council has laws about territorial acquisition, protested Click San from the Trade Federation. You cannot simply claim 50 star systems because you defeated their previous owners. We're not claiming them, Maria replied. We're protecting them. There's a difference. General Kate Robinson stepped forward. Kate had been placed in command of the new human naval bases that were being established throughout former Zephyrian space. She was a tough, no-nonsense officer who had earned the respect of both humans and aliens. Our forces will maintain order and security in these systems, Kate announced. We will protect trade routes, prevent piracy, and ensure that no species is enslaved or oppressed. Any government that wants to operate in this region must meet basic standards of civilized behavior. The implications were clear. Humanity had not just defeated the Zephyrians. They had appointed themselves as the new guardians of galactic civilization. Species that had operated with impunity for centuries would now have to answer to human oversight. On the former Zephyrian homeworld, now renamed Haven Prime, Admiral Ben Tucker was overseeing the establishment of a new government. The planet's population included dozens of different species that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians for generations. We're not here to rule you, Ben explained to the assembly of alien representatives. We're here to make sure you can rule yourselves fairly and peacefully. Katie Bell, who had been rescued from slavery, was now working as the chief engineer for the new planetary government. Her experience under Zephyrian rule made her an effective advocate for the rights of former slaves. The humans saved us, Katie told the assembly. They could have just destroyed the Zephyrians and left us to figure things out on our own. Instead, they stayed to help us build something better. Tom Hayes had returned to farming, but now he managed agricultural cooperatives that included multiple species working together. The former ranch owner from New Haven had become a symbol of interspecies cooperation. We're all people, Tom said during a council meeting. Doesn't matter if you have 2 arms or 4, or if you breathe oxygen or methane. Everyone deserves to live free and work for their own benefit. Dr. Lisa Morgan had established medical centers throughout the liberated territory. Her facilities treated all species equally, something that had been unheard of under Zephyrian rule. Health care is a right, not a privilege, Lisa declared. No one should suffer because they belong to the wrong species or can't afford treatment. Back on Earth, Intelligence Officer Alex Carter was coordinating with new allies across the galaxy. Species that had been victims of Zephyrian aggression were eager to share information and resources with humanity. "We're building an intelligence network that spans half the galaxy," Alex reported to President Santos. "Former Zephyrian victims are providing information about other oppressive regimes. It seems the Dominion wasn't the only empire built on slavery and conquest. The economic changes were just as dramatic as the military ones." Diplomat Ron Clark was negotiating new trade agreements that favored previously oppressed species. The galactic economy, which had been dominated by a few powerful empires, was becoming more balanced and fair. Free markets work better when everyone is actually free, Ron explained to a gathering of alien traders. The Zephyrians kept entire species as slaves, which meant billions of potential customers couldn't buy anything. Now they can. The transformation wasn't just happening in space. On Earth, humanity was experiencing a renaissance of confidence and purpose. The species that had been seen as weak newcomers had proven they could stand up to any threat. President Santos visited the memorial that had been built for New Haven Colony. The monument listed the names of every human who had died in Zephyrian attacks, along with representatives from other species who had suffered under alien oppression. "They died because others thought humans were too weak to matter," Maria said. During the dedication ceremony, their sacrifice taught the galaxy that they were wrong. "We will never forget them, and we will never again allow such injustice to go unpunished." Colonel Nick Johnson was training the first integrated military units in galactic history. Human soldiers worked alongside aliens from dozens of different species, all united by a common commitment to protecting freedom and justice. The old galactic order was based on strength dominating weakness, Nick told his mixed classes of recruits. The new order is based on the strong protecting those who can't protect themselves. That's the difference between conquest and justice. Claire Adams had finally come out of deep cover, but she continued working in intelligence. Her network of contacts throughout former Zephyrian space provided early warning of any attempts to re-establish oppressive governments. "The galaxy is watching to see if humans will become like the old empires," Claire reported during a security briefing. "Some species are testing us, trying to see if we'll use our power for selfish gain." "And what have you told them?" President Santos asked. Claire smiled. "I tell them to ask the former slaves. They'll explain the difference between human justice and Zephyrian oppression." The Galactic Council was struggling to adapt to the new reality. For centuries, they had maintained power by balancing different empires against each other. Now one of those empires was gone, and humanity had emerged as a force that couldn't be ignored or controlled. The humans refused to follow traditional diplomatic protocols, Chairman Vextar complained to his advisors. They act unilaterally without seeking council approval. Perhaps because the council failed them when they needed help, one aide suggested carefully. Vextar considered this. The truth was that the council had dismissed humanity's pleas for justice after New Haven. They had assumed humans would accept their fate, like so many other weak species before them. That assumption had proven catastrophically wrong. A year after Operation Retribution, the changes were permanent and irreversible. The Zephyrian Dominion was history, replaced by a federation of free worlds under human protection. Trade flowed more freely, slavery was actively suppressed, and dozens of species that had been victims were now partners. Admiral Tucker, now showing more gray in his hair, stood on the observation deck of his flagship. Below him, Haven Prime was rebuilding itself as a center of interspecies cooperation. Ships from dozens of different worlds came and went peacefully, protected by human naval forces. "Do you think we did the right thing?" His aide asked. Ben thought. About New Haven, about Jake Sullivan's final message, about the 3,000 innocent people who had died simply because they wanted to build new lives in peace. The galaxy gave us two choices, he said finally. Accept injustice or fight it. We chose to fight. I think Jake Sullivan would approve. At the rebuilt New Haven colony, now much larger and more diverse than before, a new memorial had been erected. It honored not just the human victims of Zephyrian aggression, but all the beings who had suffered under the old system of galactic oppression. The inscription read, "They thought we were weak. They thought we would forget. They thought wrong. In memory of all who suffered, and in promise to all who remain, never again." Ships from across the galaxy came to visit the memorial, carrying representatives from species that had been freed from slavery, oppression, and fear. They came to pay their respects to the humans who had died, and to the humans who had lived to change everything. The galaxy had indeed shuddered when humans came.